This will be fun. You will need your phone. Just saying. We'll put that up there for now. So this is pretty exciting though, because I've been wanting to do this kind of talk for a long time, and it will definitely not end up in flames, I hope. Right. Okay. So for those of you that aren't familiar with, hi, I'm Lars. I work for Pluralsight, as Matt just said. I'm a Microsoft MVP in Azure, which means they give me some really, really nice stickers that says Azure on them. And I have a YouTube channel. I keep plugging that because it's my pet project. It's not on Azure. It's on like networking stuff and home automation and Lego. And if you weren't here yesterday when I did the other talk I did on a manual for nerds, yes, I do have llamas. And people always go, ooh, llamas. And no, they're not actually our llamas. It's my paddock, but it's a neighbor's llamas. And for some reason, people find that interesting. Not that it's a neighbor's, but that there are llamas. Good. And okay, this is too long. Okay, I gotta talk more. You ready? This is the moment, and then we get into all the technology stuff. Okay. Oh, come on. Anyway, it's because I live in the middle of nowhere. As if you were here yesterday, I kind of explained about the farm and everything. And it's an interesting way of working in cloud computing and not having an actual internet. So see, there it is. Isn't it cute? Oh, I know. Thanks, Pete. Okay, what's the plan today? So the plan is I'm going to tell you a whole bunch about Azure. It's going to be quickfire, a whole bunch of tooling and tidbits and whatever. So has anyone here used Microsoft Azure at all? Okay, that's a few people. Good. So some of these things you may know, some of them you may not know. It's going to be pretty high level because I'm a bit ambitious in how much I put in there. But the cool thing is that you're part of it, right? You're actually part of the presentation. And by the way, most of these images that I'm going to show you in the slides today are made by AI, including that one. It's kind of neat. So AI images, which is one of my pet projects as well. So what are we going to use? We are just going to use the Azure portal because it's easier to show visually. Because this is, again, pretty quick. There's going to be a lot of content in here. But you can also use many other tooling like the CLI or PowerShell or an SDK or however else you interact with the cloud platform. The portal that we're going to be using is good for showing stuff and demoing. Not so efficient for day-to-day use. I would use something like the CLI as a developer, or if you're into more the infrastructure side, I'd use the PowerShell. So here's the story, right? It is called, Cloud Adventure. Are you familiar with the old Choose Your Own Adventure? Yeah, I figured most people were, right? So this is what we're doing. There's a kingdom called the Kingdom of the Bright Blue Cloud, which is in trouble. Of course, there's always a drama, right? Dragons are tagging, and they need expert help, desperately. So they need your help, right? So I'm going to ask you to tell me what to do next, within reason, right? And for that, you can either go to Choose Your Own Cloud Adventure, CYOCA.azurewebsites.net, or you can just scan that, right? So if you can do that now, that would be excellent. And I'll go and look at my other side of things here. So, okay. Cool. So it should say that it's not ready yet once you get there. All right. This will be good. All right. So, all right, I'm going to move on. So if you didn't get the QR code, it's CYOCA, Choose Your Own Cloud Adventure. .azurewebsites.net. And of course, as yesterday, I'm going to give a few prizes at the end. That's going to be your prize for helping me out, I guess. So, which means you can also use that code again, but I'll put it up again on the end. And again, if you have questions, please do ask. I can't take as many questions as yesterday because we've got a fair amount to go through. But yeah, do shout out or whatever. I'm not going to do questions at the end because we're going to go through a whole bunch, right? So ask them if you have them at the time. I'll try and do quick answers where possible. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the foundation for our cloud castle. Because, well, we've got to have something to build on, right? So we're going to have a solid foundation that's going to help us prevent dragon attacks and monsters and everything. That's the plan. And that foundation is an Azure App Service, right? So an Azure App Service is platform as a service. Are you familiar with that? Does anyone don't know IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS? And now there's marketing got involved, so now we've got every other type of ass, right? But it's a platform as a service. So it means that we don't manage any hardware. And that's, hooray, as the developers, that's fantastic. So you can host websites, APIs, containers, a whole bunch of stuff. And actually, you can host more than that, which we may come to in the end. It's one of the most used Azure services. There's more than 2 million websites that are hosted on Azure App Services, as well as other APIs and stuff. And it's fully managed. That's the key. If you're not familiar as much with cloud computing, the managed part of every service, especially on Azure, there's a word they like using, means that Azure does a lot of the work. It's managed for you. In this case, it's a managed web server, or VM essentially, that comes with certain features and functions, which is what we're going to build on. And it can be cost effective or not. That bit you can really screw up if you want to. Welcome to cloud computing. Yeah. All right, so here's the plan. I'm going to, all right, whoops, sorry. There you go, so you can see that, So I'm gonna create, if you haven't seen Azure before, this is the Azure portal. If you're familiar with AWS, it's the same as the AWS console. It's the same idea. It looks different, does the same thing, more or less. If you've got questions about AWS, ask Pete, sit over here. I'm gonna keep doing that today, Pete. But we're gonna create an Azure App Service, which is there. That's just because I did it recently. It's up in the shortcuts, right? So all I do is click create. And again, you can do all of this much quicker, much simpler using a CLI, but I am going to do it in the portal because it's visual. So we're going to call this one YOW Brisbane Resource Group. You have to have a resource group on Azure. Everything must live within a resource group, which is just a logical container, essentially. So we're going to call this, what do we call it? YOW Brisbane, and we'll see if that's available. Has anyone done that? Hey, no one did that. So we're not actually going to use that, but you can see here there's a, .azurewebsites.net, which means that it has to be unique because it's the public web address, right? So the name of the app service has to be unique. You can choose code, Docker, whatever. I'm going to just choose .NET. Let's choose .NET 7, because why not? You can run Linux or Windows. We'll run on Windows. You're going to choose a region. Again, I'm going through this pretty quick. I'm aware, because this is maybe not the most interesting part. Everything on Azure is made this way if you use the portal. It all sort of looks like this wizard kind of approach. And then you have the plans, right? So what kind of VM essentially is what they're asking? And this is where you can get really into trouble because it always just chooses like a standard S1, and that's where you get. If you want to create a new one, or if I had an existing one, I could choose that too. Existing plan. So yeah, that's probably all right. You can change that or create a new one. It creates that for you, or you can create a different one, whatever you want to do. Yeah, I'm just going to go through this. Deployment, GitHub Actions settings and GitHub integration. You can set that up, and maybe we get to that. It's up to you. I'm not going to do that right now. And networking, again, you can enable network injection. Again, I'm not going to go through that either. So I'll just review and create. So we're creating now an app service for Azure, which is just a web server, right? There's nothing on it. We haven't put anything on there yet. I'll just click create. And it just gives you a resource you can do things with. So we can put wherever we want on it. But for now, it's our foundation, right? It's the foundation for the castle. So that takes 20 seconds, 30 seconds, something. It essentially just spins up a VM and puts all the app service bits on there. All right, so I'll see here, make sure I don't miss anything. Cool. All right, I'll just let that. Any questions on that? Because that was a bit quick as well. But it's simple enough. Yeah, we good? All right, because this is a foundation, right? So we haven't done anything particularly exciting just yet. So I can go to that resource, and again, this view of the portal is what you see everywhere on Azure. This is what it looks like. There's always this left-hand menu of usually more or less the same things to try and keep it very similar. But in this case, I'm going to show you a couple of things I think are worth looking at. So there's an identity here. This is one of the things that makes Azure, well, I'm sure it works it exists in GCP and AWS as well, but I'm just not as familiar with it. But this managed identity is one of the keys to making Azure secure and easy to work with, right? Now I am going to actually create one and use it a bit later on, but this is the way that you assign roles and permissions to your resources on Azure. So remember the identity part of it is we've sort of left all of the username password stuff behind. We don't really use that anymore. It's not very safe because people find passwords on wherever, GitHub used to be. So the way to do it is using these assigned identities, which is an Azure Active Directory identity. Right. And then we have, again, there's many things here, but I just want to show you a couple of things. Down here, there's something called development tools, where we can clone the app, sort of says itself, but there's the advanced tools. And this is always a bit more interesting to look at. It's called Kudu, K-U-D-U, is the actual application, I guess. But it gives you a whole bunch of insights into how your app is running. It essentially gives you access to the VM, more or less. So you can debug things if things go wrong. So again, if I wanted to have, say, a command prompt, I can open up a command prompt exactly on that machine, right? And it gives you really quick access to the whole file system. And this will, I can use this like any other file system. Or if I go up here and I click on, through the things, it'll change it for me in the console as well. So it's kind of neat setup. But we may use this again. Again, it's all up to you. A little bit later as well. But just some of the things that you may not know about app services, the identity and the development tool. Right, cool. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you to vote. Where we go next? So I'm just going to set it up here. There we go. Okay, so if you refresh the screen, that will work better next time. I was hoping it'd be auto-refresh, but anyway. You should see two choices, right? Keep building those walls or protect the treasury. So you got to figure out are we going to keep reinforcing the fortress, or are we going to do something about all the gold and everything we have in the treasury? So up to you. So press the button, and I'll see here what we got results. Is that working for everybody? Or is no one doing it? All right, cool. So let's see. All right. It looks like, I'm just refreshing it here, we're going to keep building those walls. What, you don't want to protect the treasury? Yeah, okay. All right. Ooh, there we go. And you will find, if you refresh the page after you've voted, you can vote again. But, it's all fun and games. All right. We'll give it 10 more seconds. We'll see. Ooh, it's close. It's close. All right. Cool. Yep. No, actually, we are going to protect the treasury. That went up, way up. Jeepers, like by a factor of 3. Okay, sure. So, that means I have to go over here. This is all very mechanical. Oh, sorry. We're going to protect the treasury. And where is the treasury? Oh, give me a second here. No. We did that one. Ooh. There we go. No, that's the armory. Sorry. Oh, hang on. No. I can't remember which one is what. There we go. Sorry. So many moving parts in this. Okay. It should come up. There we go. Oh, why did it start there? Cool. So that's Azure Storage, right? Everything we keep in the treasury is our files and whatnot, right? That's what we try and protect, is our files and our, I was going to say physical things, but they're not, the bits and bytes. So in this case, the most important part is the treasury. So I'm glad you chose that. And the entire fortune of the kingdom is stored there. So we do want to protect that. And it needs an upgrade to improve security and efficiency. So we're talking about Azure Storage. Azure Storage is where you can't almost, it's very difficult to have an Azure account without a storage account in it. It is everywhere, and is used for everything. It's vast. There are 4 different types of storage. There is blob storage, which is basically means store anything binary. There's file storage, which is very much like your Windows file system kind of thing. You can attach them, to an on-site, or do a hybrid setup with file storage. You can have queues, which are very, very cool. Very few people use them for some reason. Queue storage is a queue, but it could be millions and millions of messages that you put on there. There's almost no limit of how many messages you can have in a queue. So it eliminates the bottleneck, right? You can just keep pumping stuff on there if you connect to the queue. And then you can have something that pops them off at the other end, but in a relaxed manner if you want, or you can throw resources at it and do it all at one time, whatever it is that you need to do. But the queue storage is very cool. And then finally, there's table storage, which Microsoft really don't want you to use, but use it because it's really cheap and it's very powerful. They want you to use Cosmos, which is also very cool, but they do different things. It's cheap, like it's really cheap, like properly cheap. You can store, I can't remember the exact numbers, but if you choose the archive tier, so that's data you don't use very often, it's something like 0.003 cents per terabyte or something like that, or per gigabyte, sorry. So 0.03 cents per terabyte, it's ridiculously cheap. And then it goes up to like hot tier, cold tier, and they cost more, obviously. But it's a very good solution of just offloading your data. And it's all backed up, right? It's all at least 3 different places in the data center or across regions or whatever. It's extremely useful for that. It works with anything. There's SDK, CLIs, everything. You can hook it up to almost anything. And it just becomes a dumping ground in some cases. Yeah, it's secure. It's in Azure. So as secure as you would like Azure to be, it is what it is. You don't have to manage any of it on site. Now, there's obviously, can anyone see any problems with this, of putting everything up in the cloud? Because I usually get a question, not in this talk, it's the first time I'm doing this talk, but around storage. And it's, well, what about compliance, or what about regulations? So you want to make sure you put things in a region where you can manage it, right? And last time I looked, Azure was the one with the most ISO certifications or whatever, in terms of regulation for various countries in the world, but AWS and GCP are so close, like they're all sort of trying to one-up each other. So there's a good reason that you put stuff in the cloud. It's not just because storage is cheap, but it's also because it's actually managed correctly. So you don't have to worry about the certifications for the standards. Okay, so let's look at storage. Yay. Okay, keeps doing that. I'm going to go back here. And again, questions you just yell out, because I might not see your hand. Cool. No alpacas? Say that again? Table storage, yeah. Well, so table storage is a super simple way of having storage in a table. It's basically just a table. It's sort of the NoSQL type approach to tables, right? So you just put whatever in that table. A good example, excuse me if he still does it, but are you familiar with the Have I Been Pwned? Being in Brisbane, you might know Troy and his Have I Been Pwned service. That's all stored in table storage, right? And there's billions of records. And he still returns them within 20 milliseconds, right? It's surprisingly fast, and it's incredibly cheap because it's just storage. There's no logic as such on top of it. Of course, you can do queries and things like that. But because there's now Azure Cosmos DB, Microsoft really wants you to use to know that it's there as well. They haven't deprecated table storage. You can still use it. It's still fine. But the Cosmos DB gives you a lot of the, what's it called? I'm missing the word. Come on, people. When it's split wrong, across regions. Sorry? Scalability. Well, not quite, but redundancy across regions. I can't remember the word now. Geo-redundancy. See, I just need to ask more. It's really good for that because it's with a click of a button you have almost instant. Takes about 20 minutes. Read-write in a new region. Write as well, right? So it's write anywhere. And that's, say you had customers in Australia, you had customers in the US, and you had customers in Japan. But then you put the write regions there, and you may have read regions somewhere else where it's just an admin tool or whatever. And then you can write sub-10, or single-digit milliseconds, they call it, write time to the Cosmos DB. It's incredibly fast and incredibly powerful. And it's all just works. You don't have to manage all these different write regions. You just manage your code. And that's why Microsoft really wants you to know that. There's a lot of other things you can do with Cosmos. So that's one of the benefits, right? But sometimes table storage is all you need. and it's infinitely cheaper because it's just storage. So that's why I want to mention it. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Cool. All right, so let me just go here. And all right, so we're going to create an Azure Storage account just so you can see it. No. So one of the cool things here, you can just search for anything. So if I search for storage, it'll give me the services, but it'll also give me resources. It'll give me marketplace things because Azure has thousands of different images. So for example, recently I set up a 3CX server, which is a VoIP phone PBX type thing, right? And there's an image for that. So I just set up a 3CX VM and it was all there. So that's what the marketplace is for. So you can search for almost anything. But we're going to do a storage account. So we create a new. There's quite a few. Some I'm using for my book. There's Alpaca My Bag storage. No? Okay, no. See, I've even put an alpaca in there. I'm going to choose the same resource group so I can delete everything afterwards. We're going to call this YOW Brisbane. And we're going to put this in, oh dear. So all these sortings are done by different product teams. So each product has a different sorting of how the regions are, and I can never find them. There we go. Asia Pacific we are now. Okay, Australia East. And then you can choose standard or premium. It essentially, not quite, but essentially means, do you want a spinning hard drive or do you want an SSD? You pay more for the premium, obviously. And then you choose your redundancy, which is what I was trying to say before, geo-redundant, right? And if, there's various levels. I'm just going to choose locally redundant for now because it's just a demo. And it almost says my name. And then there's a whole bunch of things on security, requires secure transactions. Now, I usually leave these as default, but this is not 1998, and you don't just click next, 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 right? Please do read these things when you set things up. Because there's some of these that goes, oh, do you want everything to be public? Yes, yes. And you go, oh, shit, right? And that's why we have Medibank. Right, there's things that we need to be careful with. Azure now does minimum TLS is version 1.2. You cannot set up anything less than that without getting a million warnings, like if you try and choose one. Okay, it doesn't do it on the screen, but you keep getting emails going, you should really upgrade, and by 2023, we're going to deprecate, blah, blah, all this stuff. So choose 1.2, and why wouldn't you? And then there's a whole bunch, data lake, blob storage. I'm not going to go through all of it again, because we're going to run out of time, you need to vote, etc. Here's the network connectivity, enable public access from all networks, enable public access from selected, disable public access, and use private access. So private access in this case is within Azure, so it's from other Azure services onto this, which makes sense. If you have a service that has a public endpoint, you do not want your storage to be on the public internet, right? In this case, I'm just going to enable public access, because why not? There's some network routing, yep. Data protection, that's basically how long do you want to retain stuff you deleted. So it's soft delete types set up, and then there's tracking access control. Oh, encryption is the interesting one. All of the services pretty much that has to do with TLS, like any public endpoint stuff, you can bring your own managed certificates or keys if you want to, but that means you have to manage them. Nothing is ever not secured or not encrypted. All data on your Azure storage is encrypted by default, but you can bring your own certificate if you want. And you can say, okay, well, what do I want to support for customer managed keys? Okay, now I'm going to review it, I'm going to create it. And then we can upload a few things. And I just want to show you a tool. It's interesting with time. A good tool for managing your Azure storage as well. So storage doesn't take long because there's nothing in it. As you'll see, creating a storage account is like an umbrella. It's like having a bucket with no water in it. You just get the bucket. So we haven't put anything in it yet. There's nothing actually in our account. It's just a whole bunch of metadata and allocated resources. Is there any questions? There's just no questions today. Yesterday there was a million questions. I'm not annoying you enough, I guess. Yes. Sure. Oh, good question. So around identity and security, is there other things that are not, that are more attribute-based, sorry, that's the word, rather than just all role-based? No, not really. Everything is designed to be role-based access, but you can set up quite complex roles for your particular scenario. So role-based access is, those that don't know it, is the way to manage access on Azure in terms of authorization. So you set up a role has 3 parts to them, which I can't remember now what they're called, and then that determines which servers, how much, and in what sort of, with attributes as well, actually. So, but it's all role-based. It might be, yeah, could be. There's certainly different ways of doing it, for sure. If anyone knows the answer, if Azure does more attribute-based, yes, Macklin?
It's a useful comparison with the IAM roles as well, the one you would be referring to there.
Yeah. Yep.
There's multiple flavors. AWS has 3,000 different versions of this.
I think Azure has something similar, but many different. It's one of the things with cloud computing, well, anything technology, but cloud computing, because it's moving so fast, is that there are so many things, and there's value in knowing what you don't know. Because I certainly don't know everything. I know a little bit about most things on Azure, and a couple of things I know really well. I mean, I'm writing a book on it, and I'm writing about all of the things on Azure, right? And there's no way, I'm writing chapter 8, and I go, did I mention that in chapter 3? I can't remember, right? That's the process. So there's no way you can know all of it, but you know where you can go and find out about it. So that's as important, right? So know where you don't know. Now we have a storage account. You can see it looks exactly the same as the other one, right? It's the same sort of setup, but it's slightly different on the menu on the left. So in this case, I'm going to show you containers. That's where you put your blobs, binary large objects, and I can add a container here, and we can call this YOW Brisbane, because why not? And then we can have a public access level, right? So this is pretty important, because your containers, you can have your storage account be not accessible, but you can give access directly to blobs or directly to a container of blobs. And that can be really useful. So you have private blob or container. So blob means you can't traverse the folder, essentially, or you can get access to the whole container. So those are sort of, there's many levels of access for good reasons. So I'm going to just give blob, and I'm going to click create. And all that does is creates a container, which is a folder. Right, doesn't do anything. Now having done that, I just want to show you this tool, and hopefully it'll work. But it's called Azure Storage Explorer, and I don't think I can make it any bigger. I apologize. But you log in with your Azure account, and you get this very nice, at least if you're in the Microsoft world. I've drunk so much Microsoft Kool-Aid, I always think everybody knows what I'm talking about. I apologize. But like a Windows Explorer type scenario, right? If you're a Linux person and you like doing command line, this is not your tool, I apologize. But it's really cool for just traversing and figuring out what you have here. Let me just find the right one. So we go to storage accounts, and I may have to refresh them all. There we go. All loading, and here's the one we just created, right? So we, blob containers, and oh, come on. Here is my blob container. So then it'll open it up like that. There we go. There's nothing in it. What I can do, though, is I can upload, right? So if you wanted to, and you can do all this through the API or through an SDK, right? You can do all this programmatically. Everything I show you, you can do in your software or in your batch scripts or in your infrastructure as code, whatever it is what tool you're using. So I'm going to choose a bunch of files. No, it's not the treasures. Oh, yeah, we put the treasures in there. That's what we wanted to do, wasn't it? Open that, and that's it. Right, we just uploaded it. So now we have data in there. It's just that simple. And this tool really makes it that super easy to find out where things are and what you got, et cetera, et cetera. And that'll just transfer it up to there. Again, we don't have enough time. I could do a whole talk on Azure Storage, by the way. There's so many things. It's so fundamental to everything we do on Azure. But now they're here. And just to confirm, let's go and look in here in the actual container. And there they are, right? So it's the same thing. We're looking at the same thing. Everything in here is an image. Or blob, I know it's an image. And here's the URL. So remember I said access, blob access, public blob access. So I should be able to just access this directly. There we go. Actually, incognito to make sure I'm not logged in. So it still works, right? So that's the blob access. And that's super useful. It can be very, very useful to make sure you get all those things right if you have some sort of service where you want access to these things. Cool. All right, a couple of questions. That was good. I am aware that I am between you and lunch. I know that. So we're going to do the next vote, shall we? So if you grab your device. And, all right. So, and you've got to refresh the page. I apologize. Next iteration, I'll make sure that Signal actually works. So we are now at keep building those walls, or we want to monitor the armory. Like what do you prefer to do? Okay, I can hear the tensions rising. All right. All right, yep. There seems to be a, well, I'm not going to say anything this time because I think I influenced the choice last time. All right. No, it's definitely, yeah, I don't think there's any point. It's keep building those walls, right? And that's the CI/CD part of things. So we'll get to that now, which is here. Okay. Cool. Come on. There we go. Lovely. I'm assuming you're familiar with CI/CD to some extent, you know? I hope so. It's kind of like one of the fundamental things we do as software developers. So in this case, it's the constant attacks on the castle. And I'm thinking, you know, we find bugs and we want to improve things and we find things that can be done better and we refactor things, don't we? All the damn time. So we got to make sure that we have really solid walls and we can build them fast. And we need to make sure we can improve on these walls when they're built. And we want to, you know, have to be automated. So for Azure, well, this is in general for CI/CD. We do it because we get better code quality, essentially, right? That's what our managers would like us to do. The business owners, that's what they really want us. They want to improve the quality of this. They don't want bugs to go out. We don't want to have the early 2000s Microsoft approach to releasing products of going, hey, let the user test it, right? We want to build quality code. Efficient testing, hopefully. There's still a lot of CI/CD pipelines that don't have any testing. Who here does testing, say, have more than 70% test coverage of their code? There's like 3 people, right? Oh, no, a bit more. But yeah, it's hard. Like, I'm aware, it's hard. Because often we're like, but you just told me I have to get it out, you know, because we always release Friday afternoon before we're going out for beer. So no. But we have to get things out, right? We have to release things. And it becomes difficult because testing is often an afterthought, unfortunately. But it can make testing very efficient. Responsive development, so we can develop very quickly to things that change. Monitoring is a big thing, especially if you're in the DevOps side of things and you're wanting to see what's actually going on. We do that. And we have much happier clients. So I'll show you how we do it with an app service and GitHub. And there's multiple ways that we can do this, but time goes quick when you're having fun. So, it keeps doing that. There we go. So we'll go back to our app service, which is here, YOW Brisbane. And this is one way you could do it. And there's split opinions on how you should implement CI/CD. And I think that the correct answer to that is that it depends, right? What's your need? How big is your project? How many things have you got? But in this case, if I have a website, right, I don't want to go in and set up a whole Team City infrastructure, for example, or what's it called on AWS? I can't remember. What's the continuous integration thing?
But nobody uses it.
Nobody uses it? Great. Okay. See how much I know about AWS. GitHub Actions? Okay, cool. Yeah, right. Actually, GitHub Actions is a really good tool. so do that. But within Azure, they're trying to make it easier. They're trying to make it simple, especially for something like app services. Okay, which bit do I show you first? Because there's 2 really cool parts to this. Okay, I'll start. Yeah, just make up my mind what makes more sense. Have anyone ever heard of deployment slots? Oh, cool. So there's a few people. Excellent. So deployment slots on Azure, I'm hoping there's the same in GCP and AWS because they are incredibly useful. Deployment slots are essentially identical copies of your app service. Right, they're just different slots. The cool thing about it is that as we can have all of them face the public. Let me show you. So we can add a slot here, and then you add, say, I'm going to add a name, say staging. It's pretty damn common. It might be showcase, it might be production, it might be whatever you want to call it. But you can see up here, come on, there we go, that you actually get it. You can see underneath here, it says YOW Brisbane dash staging. So it adds that name as a dash something or hyphen something, right? So it's obvious it's a part of the same thing. So if I change this, you can see, oh, why did I do that? There we go. So it changes it. And there's a good reason it does that, because let me just clone settings from there, and then I add this slot. There we go. So it should only take a second. Now it adds just another copy of the same thing. Essentially, I've just copied all the settings, right? But now we have two slots for the exact same app service. Oh, come on. Of course, this is a demo, so it'll take longer than normal. But you have a public URL like you saw is YOW Brisbane staging, so you can access it directly. So you could give this to a customer and say, hey, here's the staging version of your product, or use it internally, or have, say you can put 10 different slots. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could, and have it for various parts or sections of the progress of your project. So now I have two here. It still says production is pretty clear which one's production. Right, there's a big letter that says production. What I can do is I can publish everything to staging. So I can do that from GitHub Actions, or I can do it from Azure DevOps, or whatever your pipeline tool is. And then it goes there. And if I click on it, it's exactly the same as the other app service. It just has a different URL. Right, so it's all the same settings. You can change all the different things. You can have different settings or configurations. And then if I go to it, here, it's still the same. There's nothing there yet. There's like a template because we haven't done anything. But it works. It's live. It's there. And then when we've deployed to it, oh no, I closed it. There we go. When we deployed to it and we're happy with it, all we do is click swap. And then the two instantly swap. And then your production becomes staging and your staging becomes production in this case. Right? And that means that we can have instant publish to production. And you can do this, again, programmatically. You can do this through your DevOps tools, and you can put it in your YAML, right? Or your JSON. A lot of the stuff on Azure is JSON. Depends on which tool you're using. Now, one thing I often mention here, let me just make sure I've got enough time, really quickly, is that you see this traffic part of it over here? Why can't I change that? Oh, this is decided not to. No, for some reason, I'm not sure why this is not editable. Anyway, usually it is. Probably something obvious when you're demoing. Sorry? No, I can't click on any of it, so I don't know why that is. But this is really, really, really useful for A/B testing, just as an aside. Because you can put up two different versions of the same thing, just one has a blue button, one has a red button, or whatever you're testing, and you can send some traffic to one, some traffic to the other, and see what the result is. Right? They do the same thing, and if you set it up right, it'll have the same database connection, it'll have the same everything. So deployment slots are really cool. And then I want to show you the deployment center, which some hardcore Azure people go, oh, no, we never use that. But for the right scenario, it makes sense, because it's very simple to hook up your GitHub, your Bitbucket, whatever it is, in here. So I've already logged in, otherwise you have to log into GitHub. And I can choose one of the many repositories, right? So say I had this HTML5 boilerplate, which is just a standard thing I have from GitHub. I haven't changed it, it's just a boilerplate. I can put the main on there. As soon as I click save, it'll actually publish it. It'll pull it in with GitHub Actions, and it'll publish it to my app service. It'll publish it to production, I think. I don't think that's changed here, no. You can change the publish profile for that, though. And that means that I can now have GitHub directly in the Azure portal. And some people go, oh, that's dirty. Oh, no, I don't like it. But if it's a really simple project, it makes a lot of sense, because why have all these moving parts you're never going to use, right? Yeah. So that's a very neat, and I'm not going to click save because I wanted to do that, and every time I tested it took like 20 minutes to publish this damn thing. But I have another app service where it is deployed to, so I know it did work. But you also have to you have to set up the dev token keys on GitHub so that it's all authenticated properly. Okay, so that's CI/CD part of Azure, or one part of it here. So any questions for this? Yes.
I have a quick question. With the deployment slots,
Mm-hmm.
is it deployed to the same IaaS?
Yes. Very good question. So you basically where does it go? So an app service is always on an app service plan. Right. So when I created the app service, remember there was a little basically VM, sort of says how many cores, how much memory. That's an app service plan, which is a terrible name, but Microsoft's never been good at naming. So that's just a VM. And that VM is where you push everything to, and all the slots go on that plan. So you're not paying anything extra to do deployment slots. It's exactly the same price. Now, if you put up 20 of them, well, your machine might start going, oh God, right, if you're using them all. So you might have to up the plan for it. But it doesn't cost you anything extra.
Can you show the actions work for that plan?
The actions? Yep. So let's see here if I go to GitHub. No. So here's the one I ran 4 days ago when I was testing that bit. The one that failed is a template repository, which I have nothing to do with. So I'm not sure why that failed. Everything worked just fine. But this particular one is a boilerplate, so it comes with everything out of the box. Right? That was why I chose it. But it sets up essentially, are they all the same? Sorry?
Can you go to code, workflows,
Go to,
and just show the YAML?
oh, you want to see the YAML. Right. Yep, I'll see if I can find it. Which one? Where is that? No, no. Where are you looking? Build code. Oh, sorry. You want to see that? Gotcha. I'm not sure where it is. Again, it's something I... Yeah. See, I'm learning that too. Workflows. Ah, right, okay. So, yeah, I'll show you something. Which one, publish? Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Pete's written a whole book on YAML, by the way. There was YAML in it, Pete. Is that what you want to see?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Just a basic understanding of what Azure.
Yeah, sure. Oh, fair enough. Actually, I could have zoomed in a bit, but apologies. All right. We have 5 minutes. I think we're going to do the last vote, because I'm hoping we get to one of the... where'd they go? Okay. Cool. So we're going to go level 3. Go. All right, so now you should see the next choice on your screen. Go. The excitement of voting. All right. Ooh, it's close. Still close. It's exactly the same. It's like you meant to do this. Oh, no, we got... Geez, okay, that ran up. It's like 3 times as many votes on Know Thine Enemies. I was hoping you'd pick that, actually. That's one of my favorite. All right, so this is all about custom vision, which is where is it? There. Right, so has anyone done anything with machine learning? Bron has? Okay, a couple of people. All right, cool. Because this is really aimed at sort of like me, machine learning novices. Custom vision is part of Microsoft's cognitive services, and there's a whole bunch of them. Now, I'm going to show you this quick because we have 5 minutes to lunch, okay? But this will be worth it. So the monsters are getting more and more devious. They keep finding new ways to get in and attack our kingdom, so we need to figure out how can we monitor these monsters better? How can we identify them much more efficiently, right? So that's what we're going to do with this custom vision. Some of these beautiful pixel art was made by my colleague David Neal. If anyone you know David, he does all these beautiful drawings on the internets. No? He's also made a whole book on dad jokes. Yeah. So custom vision is image recognition. That's the key. And I've been playing with this quite a bit. It's quite cool. You create your own machine learning models. They run anywhere. That's pretty cool. I'm going to run them on the cloud in Azure, but you can also download them. You can run them on your own machine. You can run them on the edge, as long as you get the model done. You can use, machine learning the easy way, right? So I'll see if I can do this really quickly. All right. Oh, did it again. So I'm going to go to customvision.ai, and anyone can do this with a Azure account. I'm going to sign in. So what I have to have, by the way, okay, so here's a couple of projects, is in the back, as the resource for running this, you need to have a, yeah, sure, I didn't mean to do that. You need to have a cognitive service in here, cognitive services. Right. And I have one in here, and I've called it YOW Vision Test, because I was testing to make sure it worked, right? So you need to have a cognitive services resource set up, but because we're running a little bit short on time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go straight into the projects here. So the idea is, I'll do a new project here for you, and then I'll show you the one I've already done so we don't have to wait for it, is Knights and Goblins. And then you choose the resource, which is the one I just showed you, right? And then you can choose a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to use it as object detection rather than classification. If you want to know what the difference is, it's basically much quicker, right? Classification is a much larger kind of project. And then all you get this this sort of interface. Not frightening at all. I can add a bunch of images, so I do that. And we'll just get the right thing here. Yeah, December. And here's my training images that I've stolen. Actually, I've downloaded them off Pixabay, which is all free. So I have 34 of these images, which I'm going to use to train my model. And that's the key. So this is you training the model. It's not a ready-made model that you can then adjust or use. You got to create your own model, right? So I'm uploading. Ooh, okay. That's going to take a while. I'm on my phone here because I don't trust it. No, that's 5G. I got 1.3 gigabit down yesterday on 5G in Brisbane. I've never had that. Melbourne is like, You know, because everybody uses it, I guess. I don't know. Okay, that's going to take a while. How about I just show you then, because we're going to run out of time. So imagine we've uploaded them. Then you go through each. Come on. There we go. And what you do is that you then tag these images. Right, so I'll show you one, and then you can guess what you do with the rest, which is the same. So this is under training images. So you say I open that knight here, right? It already knows there's something there, and you can identify different things in here. So if I go to see here, it knows there's a thing there, etc. And I've set this is a knight, right? So I'm told it that's a knight. And I've done that with all the images, right? All knights. And then there's some here, there's a monster, right? Because we don't want to kill our own knights, right? They're the good guys. We want to just identify monsters. And what I can do is I can train it. So if you click train, you get a performance index. So in this case, I've got 62% precision. That's maybe not good enough. I might want to train it a bit more. But maybe it's okay. And that's the main reason is that it knows exactly what knights are, but it's not sure what monsters are, because they look a bit different, the ones I've given them, right? And then we can do a quick test. And a quick test is just an image that we give it. So this is the interesting bit. It's our Google Bing for Goblin here, right? And I go to images and say that one, right? For example, yeah? And I just copy the image address, I put it into here, and I did choose a random one just to see if this would work properly. Put that up there, and then, there we go. It says it's 100% sure, or 99.9, that it's a monster, just based on my 34 images, right? And of course, it's green, it looks sort of like the other ones. We can choose, one that maybe looks a little bit different. What about this guy? I don't know, but I can hear snickering. And you can keep doing that, right? But obviously, you can do this programmatically. Like, that's the whole idea, is that you train your model and you have a model. And it doesn't have to be monsters and knights, of course. But again, it says, oh, 99.6% sure that this is a monster. And then you can keep training this model until it's exactly what you want. And you can then use it somewhere. I was going to use it, in case you didn't notice, if I go back to the list of, or I'm still going to, I have a llama cam, right? So I put the llamas on the internet. It's not running right now, but llamaCam.com.au, and basically it was just llamas. But people went, they're never there. So I wanted to have every 5 minutes check if there's a llama, and I was going to use this for it, right? So I trained this with, horses, etc., things that might be, that's not a llama. I just had llama, not llama, etc. So that model I was going to then use locally on my machine, so I didn't have to push everything up to the cloud all the time. So you can absolutely do that. And that's probably my favorite bit. I'm so glad you chose this. I didn't even cheat. I didn't even make you do it. This is, very cool. So we are 2 minutes into lunch. I do apologize, but there was too much good stuff. I am going to show you this. Take quick, because you get a prize, right? Come on. And go. There you go. Success. You've done it. So we've defended the castle. Now I hope this format, I was trying to make it a bit more interesting than just having 600 slides of something, right? Get you involved as well. So I hope it worked. I really like feedback on it because I have to do it again on Friday. I have to do it again on Tuesday. Right, what worked, what didn't work, let me know after the talk, for example. But yeah, the kingdom is saved. Woohoo, you've done it. And here's your reward. You get, I don't know, a discount. I'm not sure what they're giving me, to be honest. But much more important, because I work for Pluralsight, I can give you 30 days free access to everything on Pluralsight. Like I don't know what they call it, Premium Deluxe Ultra Edition. And there's no credit card, no nothing. So if you want to test it out, I'd love for you to try it out. There's an enormous amount of courses on Pluralsight. But that's the plug. That's why I got a job. But I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks very much for being my guinea pigs, and go enjoy lunch.